Trying to figure out the housing market right now, it feels a lot like you're trying to solve a Rubik's Cube, but in the dark. On one side, you've got these record high prices that just seem to defy gravity. Then you turn it and you see that sales have basically fallen off a cliff. Turn it again, and you're hearing experts predicting an imminent crash, while at the exact same time, others are insisting that the market has never been on a stronger foundation. So, what is it? A bubble about to burst? A quiet recession that's already started? Or is this some kind of fundamental recalibration to a new, way more expensive reality? The noise is just deafening. And the stakes for homeowners, for anyone trying to buy, for the entire economy, they could not be higher. So today, we're going to turn on the lights. We're going to look at every single side of this puzzle, piece by piece, and give you the framework you need to see the whole picture. Let's solve this thing together. So let's start with the first argument. And for a lot of people, this is the most reassuring one. This comes from Zillow Research. They went out and polled over 100 economists and housing market specialists. And what was the consensus? Even though prices have been appreciating at a pace that has literally shattered all previous records, the clear majority of them, they believe we are not in a housing bubble. The idea here is that today's market, yeah, it's hot, no one's denying that, but it's built on a rock-solid foundation of actual fundamentals. It's a completely different world from that house of cards we saw back in 2008. This is that powerful "this time is different" argument. But you have to ask, is different actually enough to avoid a painful correction? And just as you start to feel a little bit better, you hear this. A completely different take from the respected economist Neil Dutta. See, he isn't even talking about a bubble or some future risk. He's making the case that a housing recession is probably happening right now as we speak. And that's a really important distinction. He's not necessarily calling for a nationwide price collapse. He's talking about a severe, painful contraction in the activity of the housing sector. The building, the buying, the selling. His whole argument is that the economic engine of housing has already seized up. So how can the market be not a bubble, but also in a recession at the same time? The confusion just gets deep. And then, to complete this trio of confusion, you get this absolutely chilling assessment from market expert Larry McDonald: a slow-moving train wreck. Come on, this isn't just a different diagnosis, it's like a different disaster movie. This phrase, it suggests a catastrophe that isn't just a possibility, it's inevitable. It's already in motion, unfolding right in front of us, whether we see it or not. It brings this sense of impending doom and systemic risk that the other 2 points of view don't really capture. And, as we're about to find out, he might not even be talking about the market you think he is. Okay, so let's recap. We have a fundamentally strong market, a quiet recession, and a slow-moving train wreck. It's no wonder people are so confused. And look, these aren't just random opinions from the internet. These are well-reasoned arguments from top experts who are all looking at the same data. So in this explainer, we're going to be detectives. We're going to open a case file for each one of these claims. We're going to look at the evidence. And by the end, I promise you'll have a much clearer way of making sense of all this chaos. Now, making sense of the market is one thing, but actually making a move in it, that's a whole other ballgame. So before we jump in, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and check out the links in the description if you're looking for a real estate agent in your market or you need life insurance. My team and I can help you anywhere nationwide. It really helps us keep making these deep dives for you. All right, here's our game plan for today. First, we're going to set the stage with the great housing debate and really understand why the experts are so divided. Then, we'll open up case file number 1, the argument that this is not a bubble. After that, we'll look at case file number 2 and examine the claim that a recession is already here. From there, we'll dive into the one thing every expert agrees is driving the whole show: the rate roller coaster. Then, and this is super important, we'll look at the separate crisis that is the commercial train wreck. And finally, we're going to wrap up by giving you your own bubble detection kit so you can analyze the market for yourself. So the big question is, why is there so much disagreement among people who do this for a living? Well, it's because the economic world we're in right now it's completely unprecedented. Think about it. The pandemic set off this chain reaction of events we've never seen before. You had massive government stimulus being pumped directly into people's pockets, global supply chains that totally shattered and are still being put back together, and a complete revolution in how and where we all work. Now you have central banks trying to stuff the inflation genie back in the bottle with the most aggressive rate hikes in 40 years. And it's creating all these economic signals that are basically at war with each other. It's this unique post-pandemic chaos that has created the perfect storm for debate. All right, let's open up our first case file. This is the optimistic view, right? The one held by that majority of experts in the Zillow survey. Now, their main argument isn't that the market is normal or affordable, not at all. They get it. Prices are incredibly high and affordability is a full-blown crisis for a lot of people. But, and this is the key, Their point is that the underlying structure of the market is fundamentally sound. And that's why this isn't a bubble in the same way 2008 was a bubble, just waiting to pop and take down the entire financial system with it. Now, take a look at this. What's so wild about this slide is just how strong the consensus is. When Zillow and Pulsonomics surveyed 114 economists, academics, and market analysts, a full 60% said no, the US housing market is not in a bubble. Less than a third said yes. I mean, that's huge. Think about it. These are people whose entire careers are built on finding risk. For a clear majority of them to look at these absolutely record-shattering prices and say, nope, not a bubble, it tells you they see something fundamentally different, something way more stable, baked into the DNA of today's market. And this right here, this slide explains their entire argument in a nutshell. It's the this time is different case. On the left, you've got today's market. The foundation, strong fundamentals, basically a chronic shortage of homes for sale. And the mortgage quality, it's the best it's been in decades. We're talking tough credit standards, income verification, big down payments, the whole 9 yards. Now look over on the right to 2006. It was the polar opposite. That market was running on pure speculation, on this crazy belief that prices only go up. The mortgages were a house of cards, widespread subprime lending, liar loans with zero documentation, teaser rates designed to blow up. Today, homeowners have record amounts of equity. Back then, people were drowning in debt. So the point isn't that prices aren't high, it's that the system and the homeowners holding those prices up are stable, not fragile. Okay, let's put that file aside for a second and open up our second one. This is Neil Dutta's perspective, and he argues that we're all asking the wrong question. He says it isn't about if a recession is coming to the housing market, it's about recognizing the one that's already here. See, this view shifts the focus away from a big, dramatic nationwide price crash and zooms way in on the activity within the industry, the buying, the selling, the actual construction of new homes. Dutta's argument is that this entire part of the economy, which is a huge driver of GDP, is already in a deep, painful freeze. And here you go, Exhibit A for the recession argument. Single-family building permits are down over 30% from their peak. So why is this one number so incredibly important? Well, a building permit is what a developer has to get before they can even start digging a foundation for a new home. That makes it a powerful leading indicator. It tells you what's coming down the pipeline for the construction industry 6 to 12 months from now. And a drop this big, it's a five-alarm fire. It means builders are slamming on the brakes hard. They're canceling projects, they're shelving future plans because sales are just dried up, and they're terrified they're going to get stuck with houses they can't sell. And that freeze in activity has this massive ripple effect on jobs, on GDP, and on sales of everything from lumber to refrigerators. Now, this is where it gets really interesting, because this slide just completely blows up the idea of a single national housing market. Neil Dutta says that looking at the national average home price right now is dangerously misleading. In a place like New Jersey, which has a lot of older homes and not much new construction, inventory is super tight. A good house priced rate can still get multiple offers and go under contract in a week. But that's not where the real economic engine of housing is. All the action, the investment, the jobs, the big GDP numbers, that's in the builder-heavy markets like Florida, Texas, and Arizona. That's where most of the new homes in America get built. And it's in those specific markets where, according to Dutta, you are already seeing very, very rapid declines in home prices because builders are slashing them just to move inventory. So the recession isn't everywhere at once, but it's hitting like a sledgehammer in the places that matter most to the construction economy. So we have two really compelling but totally contradictory cases. One says the foundation is solid as a rock. The other says the industry built on that foundation is already collapsing. But there is one powerful force that every single expert, I don't care which side they're on, agrees is the absolute linchpin. It's the master control switch for the entire residential market, and that is the violent, unprecedented roller coaster ride of mortgage rates. They are the deciding factor here. This quote from Redfin's chief economist, Daryl Farweather, just nails it. It perfectly captures the whiplash the market felt. The speed of the rate increase was just shocking. It wasn't a gentle slope up, it was a vertical leap, the fastest rise in modern history. And like Farweather says, that added thousands of dollars to the potential monthly mortgage payment for the exact same house. This created this immediate two-sided paralysis. On one side, buyers were just instantly priced out. Their purchasing power was just decimated overnight. At the same time, existing homeowners, most of whom are sitting on these golden handcuff mortgages with rates around 3%, they looked at the new 6 or 7% rates and just said no way. They got locked in, unwilling to sell and give up that amazing rate. And the result? A market stalemate, complete gridlock. Now, a lot of people think the Federal Reserve has this big dial in their office labeled mortgage rates that they just turn up and down. It doesn't work like that. But their influence is massive, and this is how it works. Think of it this way. The Fed doesn't set the price of milk at the grocery store, but when they change the cost of doing business for the farmers and the trucking companies, you better believe it affects the price you pay. It's a ripple effect. The Fed adjusts its main policy rate. That sends a powerful signal to the whole financial world about how serious they are about fighting inflation. That signal makes investors in the bond market adjust their expectations, which changes the yield on things like the 10-year Treasury bond. And since mortgage rates are closely tied to those bond yields, mortgage lenders adjust their rates. It's an indirect but incredibly powerful chain reaction. And in this environment, protecting your own financial stability is more important than ever. So before we go any further, I just want to remind you to like, share, and subscribe, and check out the links in the description if you're looking for a real estate agent in your market or you need life insurance. My team and I can help you anywhere nationwide. It's a simple click that really helps us keep going. And hey, this isn't just an American story. If we look just north to Canada, we see almost the exact same movie playing out. When the Bank of Canada started its own aggressive campaign of rate hikes to fight their inflation, it triggered the same effects. Their housing market, which was scorching hot, cooled way down. Buyers all across Canada face the exact same affordability crunch as people in the US, and now analysts up there are also talking about this huge pool of pent-up demand from buyers who are just sitting on the sidelines waiting for rates to come down. It really shows you that this core dynamic, the central bank's policy dictating the housing market's tempo, is a global thing right now. Okay, now we need to pause and make a really important distinction here. Everything we've talked about so far, the bubble debate, the recession, the rate gridlock, that all applies to the residential housing market, places where people live. But there is another separate crisis brewing in the world of commercial real estate, and it is a completely different beast with a totally different set of problems. This is the slow-moving train wreck that Larry McDonald was talking about, and its potential fallout is in a lot of ways much more dangerous. I want you to just take a second and let this number sink in. Up to $1 trillion. That is the high-end estimate that experts like Cantor Fitzgerald's CEO have warned could go into default in the commercial real estate sector. To give you some perspective, the entire student loan crisis we talk about all the time, that's about 1.7 trillion. So this is a problem on a monumental scale, and it's not about individual homeowners. This is about massive loans on office buildings, on shopping malls, and other commercial properties that are facing a full-blown existential crisis. And the real risk here is that this debt is concentrated in small and regional banks, creating a potential systemic risk to the whole financial system. This whole crisis was created by a devastating one-two punch. The first punch was the pandemic, which created a seismic and probably permanent shift in how and where we work. The rise of remote and hybrid work just means companies need way less office space. That's led to vacancy rates that are just soaring. In cities like New York and San Francisco, it's around 20%. One out of every 5 offices is just sitting empty. So that was punch one. The demand just disappeared. Punch two was the Fed's rate hikes. See, commercial properties are usually financed with shorter-term loans that have to be refinanced every 5 or 10 years. Well, close to $2 trillion of this debt is coming due in the next couple of years. The owners are in an impossible spot. Rates are double or triple what they were, and even worse, because of all the empty space, the buildings themselves are now worth a fraction of what they were when the loan was taken out. You can't refinance a $100 million loan on a building that's now only worth $60 million. That is the slow-moving train wreck. It's a predictable, unavoidable collision. So, we have explored all these conflicting arguments. We've untangled the separate crises in the residential and commercial markets. Now, for this last section, I want to help you move from all this confusion to some clarity by giving you the same tools the professionals use. So instead of just being tossed around by crazy headlines, you can use these team metrics to look at your own local housing market and develop a much more informed opinion. Think of this as your personal bubble detection kit. Okay, the first and most important tool in your kit is the price-to-income ratio. This is the absolute bedrock of housing affordability. It's simple. You take the median home price in your town and you divide it by the median household income for that same area. The number you get tells you how many years of a typical salary it would take to buy a typical home. Now, that number is going to be wildly different in San Francisco versus Cleveland, right? But the key isn't the number itself, it's the trend. You want to look at the history for your specific market. If the ratio in your city is usually a 4, and right now it's a 7, that's a huge red flag. It means prices have gotten dangerously disconnected from what local wages can actually support. The second tool you need is the price-to-rent ratio. This one is brilliant because it's like a lie detector for the market. It helps you figure out if prices are going up because of real demand or because of pure speculation. Think about it. The price of rent is a direct measure of the actual demand for shelter in an area. So if home prices are rising more or less at the same speed as rents, that usually points to a healthy market. But if home prices are skyrocketing while rents are pretty flat or only going up a little bit, that is a massive warning sign. It suggests people aren't just buying homes to live in, they're buying them as an investment, betting on future prices. When the cost of owning becomes way higher than the cost of renting a similar place, you might be looking at a bubble. And finally, you have to zoom out from the immediate numbers and look at the long-term drivers. Demographics, they're basically destiny for the housing market. For the last decade, the market has been on fire, powered by the millennials, a huge generation, even bigger than the baby boomers, all hitting their peak home buying years. But the generation coming up behind them, Gen Z, is a lot smaller. And at the exact same time, the massive baby boomer generation is aging into their 70s and 80s. And over the next couple of decades, their homes are going to start coming onto the market in waves. This huge demographic shift in both supply and demand could fundamentally change the housing landscape for years. Thinking about that long game is crucial. And if you need a guide for that journey, as we wrap up, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and check out the links in the description if you're looking for a real estate agent in your market or you need life insurance. My team and I can help you anywhere nationwide. We really appreciate you joining us for this. In all of this, it leads us with the one big unanswered question. We've seen the evidence that today's market has strong financial roots unlike the last crash. We know there's a huge demographic shift coming over the horizon. And yet, we are living through a historic affordability crisis made so much worse by these violent swings in interest rates. So, are we in a classic bubble that's just destined to pop? Is it a regional recession that will eventually work itself out? Or are we in the middle of a painful, chaotic recalibration? A market that's just fighting its way to a new, permanently higher plateau, where the dream of owning a home is just fundamentally more expensive and harder to reach than it was for our parents. That right there, that is the core tension at the heart of the great housing debate.